Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining in. Hey, Kaushil, good evening.
Hey Shubham, good evening. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. How are you doing?
All good. Thank you so much for hosting me today.
Absolutely, my pleasure, man. My name is Shubham. I'm working as a customer success manager here at Sprouts, and we are delighted to host Kaushil, Associate Director of Growth and Partnerships for the North American regions at Signzy. The first question that comes when it comes to mind, right? I mean, could you explain how ABM according to you? What is it, and what the importance looks like?
So I'll just break it down, right? And what I'm going to focus on today, for the entire discussion is also try to focus on the psychological aspect of prospecting and not just the skill aspect of it. And to begin with, ABM, account based marketing, I would sort of in simple words put it as key account marketing or specific account marketing and things like that. Just to sort of sum it up, right? If you're not specific, you're not relevant in today's changing scenarios. So I think that's pretty much sums it up on why ABM is necessary as of today. And obviously, you can go on about marketing, across multiple industries, multiple accounts, and things like that. But again, when you want to get into specifics, I think you need to be relevant in that sense, and that's again what makes it relevant.
Well said. Well said. Having relevance in whatever messaging we are putting out, it's very important. Well said.
Yeah.
Perfect. Perfect. So following up with the question, right? In your opinion, why is personalization so important, and what is its role in the prospecting process?
Why is personalization important? Specifications are important in order to stay relevant. And then again, if you want to sort of deep dive into it, right, dig deep into it with regards to why is it important, I think there are a lot of facets to it. Again, if you want, so there are multiple qualifications, right? One is MQL, another one is SQL. So as long as it is MQL, things are fine. But again, you need from you want the lead to move from an MQL to an SQL. And I think there a perfect way to do that is to sort of have certain factors associated, certain filtrations, put in there. Let's say, for example, once you have an MQL, do you want to assess whether it is the right account that you're reaching out to, right? That's step one. Then again, another step is, whether or not you're reaching out to the right lead. And most importantly, right, because we are on the topic of account-based marketing. Are you reaching out to the right account? So it's not just about, the specifications pertaining to the account. Obviously, specifications are necessary for you to stay relevant. But again, there are multiple facets that other than the account level specifications that are involved, that are whether you are reaching out to the right lead, whether you are again reaching out with the right message, and most importantly whether or not you're reaching out to the right account. So I would put it like this: right account, right message, right lead. So I think that's why it becomes important for you to personalize on a lot of things, because if you get that formula right, I think you'll see improved success in the coming days.
Correct, correct, correct. Also, I mean, speaking of MQLs and SQLs, right? I mean, I would love to understand if you can share some tools that can significantly assist in customizing our strategies to target these MQLs and SQLs that we are looking after.
So I think most importantly, the way that I have done it, or in my previous days when I was doing it, and still I talk to my team about,
Right.
is obviously navigator is something that's of utmost importance. I think it gives the most genuine sort of leads to sort of look into, or the most genuine pool to sort of get into, because then you can then filter out, right, and then you can get into specifics with regards to any particular profile that you're reaching out to.
Right.
And if you want to sort of, again, if it's on a company page, then you can sort of, as of today, in the last year or so, I think when from the time chat gpt has picked up, I think it has sort of helped in a lot of ways to sort of understand, because see, one thing is, in the initial days when you were using a lot of tools, I think you were manually sort of using it one by one.
Right.
Today, I think we have that forum or platform where everything is sort of combined in one platform, so to say. And some things that Sprouts actually sort of does for
Right.
our company as well, right? So you guys
Yes.
also help my team with a lot of sequences. You also help with a lot of prospecting, identifying leads, identifying accounts. So I think that's come a long way now. So I think we are moving towards a phase where we are moving from isolation to, let's
Right.
say, a platform with a lot of integration. So I don't have the word for it, but I think that's the way I would put it.
Right. How we put it as all in one.
Yeah, all
Yeah.
in one. Yeah.
Right. Perfect. Kaushil, for the next question I have is, right, I would love to understand how you and your team put down some steps, when you initiate a personalized ABM effort, right?
Okay.
What are those steps do you take to make everything the foundation ready and then perfectly move towards the execution? Yeah.
I think it's very important to sort of have that process in your head, right? How do you visualize the process? That's step one. Yeah. Second, if you already have the industry that you would be reaching out to, that's step 2. Mm-hmm. I think when you have sort of figured out the industry, or if you've been given that to you by the management, I think then the very important step is to figure out, what is the kind of account that you want to reach out to. If it is something that the management mandates that you want to reach out to the top 10 accounts, or let's say the mid-size accounts, accordingly I'll sort of go on about telling my team, or even when I'm prospecting, go on about targeting the account. So let's say, for example, for the interest of discussion today, let's say in a particular industry we are reaching out to a top 10 account, right? Mm-hmm. Now, the very first thing that I would want to do, if I were to personalize, with regards to that specific account, is you need to be aware, the kind of environment that the company operates in. It's just like how you operate as an individual. The only matter of difference is that the company is operating in a business environment. Numbers affect the company, profit and loss affects the company, revenue most of all affects the company. So you need to look at it as somebody who's getting affected by all these factors, right? Whether internal or external. And now when you're targeting top 10 accounts, now there are two ways to look at it, right? One, the company could be public. One, it could be private. In case of public companies, you'll find a lot of information, with regards to what their strategy is for the next fiscal year, what their strategy is for the next 5 years. Most of these companies have, let's say, a 3 or a 5 year strategy plan, right? That they're working on. So that's in the case of, public companies. Now, if you want to drill down into it, not a lot to read, but then again, let's say a 3-year plan would hardly be about 5-7 pages, and 5-year plan would be hardly 8 to 10 pages, right? So once you've been able to sort of review all these pages, right, understand, in your own way what the company is doing, because you do have some sense of understanding, right? Because let's say, for example, I belong to Signzy. I know what Signzy's strengths are. I know where we lack. I know where, where is it that we could really add value to our clients and things like that. From that standpoint, having that in mind, assessing and reading about my target company's, the 3-year or a 5-year strategy plan, it helps me realize, the areas or the places where I could sort of, plug in, with my services or with my pitch. Mm-hmm. And what that really does is, right, now when you're ready to sort of, reach out to the client, once you've done, the reading and all of that, once you've filtered out the people that you want to reach out to, now when it comes to the messaging part, I think you will see a difference, right? Because now that you have an understanding of what your target company strategy is, you would want to incorporate those pointers in your pitch, whether it be through cold call or whether it be through, any cold email or anything like that. Mm-hmm. And I think, the most places where people, see success is when you speak the client's language. Now, say, for example, you are target prospect of mine. And if I'm talking about your strategy, mm-hmm. I would definitely be interested in hearing you out, right? May or may not be the case that I would want to buy from you. But again, it actually opens those doors for you to get in. I think that's point one. And people love it, right? People are passionate about their work. When you talk about what they are working on day in, day out, rather than talking to them about what you are working on day in, day out, I think they would definitely be interested in hearing you out. So I think that's what makes it more specific. Yeah. The client feels that you're speaking his language. Then also you at some point of time also get that impression that you are sort of going on about pitching yourself. So I think one of the important steps, just if I were to sum all of this up, is try and pitch it to yourself, right? Imagine that you are the target company that you're reaching out to. And then again, how is it that you would pursue somebody reaching out to you? And if it is relevant, not relevant, basis the strategies or the other slides that you've read
Yeah.
to sort of contextualize, right, particularly
Right.
that
Right.
account. Yeah.
Perfect. Well said. Yeah. Kaushal, also I have seen that keeping it simple is the game plan. These are the people we are talking about. I mean, they know how the business is happening. Keeping it simple and your words as well as simple and how you can add value plays a very big role. Kaushal, so I think you and your team have been doing a lot of personalized content for your customers, right? So, what advice would you give on creating a personalized content so that your lead or a prospect that converts?
I would only suggest that do not try and deviate. And I
Hmm.
would not want to use such negative words, but I would this would be my suggestion that let's not try and deviate from what the company is actually working on. Let's say,
Right.
for example, when I just spoke about, right, just a few minutes back,
Yeah.
going through that company strategy and then trying to pitch in something or talk about something that's completely
Hmm.
unrelated or not yet in the picture.
Right.
I think you would want to minimize that.
Right.
It just so happens that when you see somebody who's let's say, for example, who's joined new in an organization, is trying to figure out what his own company does, and then second thing is for him to understand what is it that he could pitch. But those initial efforts, if communicated the right way, that this is where our strength lies and this is what we're trying to achieve. So I think that would be my suggestion. Not Let's not try and deviate
Hmm.
from what you already know about your company, yourself, and then again what you've already read about the customer. I think that keep it very simple, keep it to the point, and not just hover around it.
Awesome. So yeah, next thing I have is within Sprouts we are partner with Bambora for intent, as if no, right? And we have been using for this intent data to play with enterprises, right? And I'm sure at Signzy you might be using it, right? And so I want to understand what kind of buyer intent data pointers that you see that can help you in your personalization strategy for an ABM.
Buyer intent data. So I'm not directly actually working on it. I actually work on that with my marketing team involved. But I think there are specific keywords that
Mhm.
during our weekly catch-up that we discuss on,
Right.
because obviously we are running a lot of campaigns, right? Whether it be
Right.
on
Yeah.
LinkedIn, whether it be on through Google Ads and things like that. But I think it's with regards to the specific keywords, again, that you are also using for your own sales pitches, and
Right.
something that's also getting you inbound leads as well, right?
Got
So I think just to narrow it down, specific, focus on 15-20 keywords,
Yeah.
because the problem with a lot of keywords is also that when you have like 30, 45, it's good, right? It's good, but again, you're always going to end up with bandwidth issues, and then again, more or less, some or the other way,
Hmm.
sometimes it might mess up for you, right? So I think it's
Yeah.
important for us to sort of focus on those 10, 15, 20 keywords,
Hmm.
because that will help you understand what the buyer intent is,
Yeah.
rather than wanting to focus on. So it depends, right? The
Hmm.
kind of scale that you're operating at, the kind of resources that you have
Hmm.
amongst yourself, I think that would really determine the kind of scale or sample size that you would want to play with.
Got it. Got it. All right. And speaking of campaigns, I mean, can you give us an example of a campaign that you successfully executed in the ABM, right? And where do you see the future of personalization heading to?
When it comes to campaigns, right, I always tell my team there are two ways that you could sort of
Mhm.
run a campaign. First is when you're sort of hitting into a new industry for the very first time,
Right.
try and do that manually, because that's how things have sort of developed. Traditionally it was all manual, right?
Yeah.
Back in the day, 8 years back, everything was manual. There were no tools, there was nothing. You
Right.
either had to pick up the phone or you either had to write the email yourself.
Right.
So I think one of the first things that I would suggest is try and try and tap into the industries or the accounts that you want to sort of specifically focus on for the very first time in a manual way, because
Mhm.
that will help you understand the pulse of the account. When I
Right.
say pulse, it just means that you are much more involved when you're doing it manually compared to when you're doing it in an automated way.
Right.
Now, once you've done that, right,
Mhm.
now block by block, let's say you're running a manual campaign for a week or two.
Yeah.
But at the same time, there were campaigns that you were running previously manually. Now you can automate them, right? Because initial time it could be that it would not have been the right time for somebody to reach out to. But then again, if you sort of keep that on the back burner and keep it going, right? So it's a
Right.
mix of both manual and automated, in that sense that
Yeah.
first do it manually so that you know what the pulse of the account is.
Right.
so that when you automate that campaign, at a later date, you would know the kind of things that you would want to automate on,
Right.
right? Let's say, for example, the amount of follow-ups that have to go,
Yeah.
right? Or let's say the kind of messaging that you would want to send. Because let's say, for example, you've even during your manual reach outs or any kind of reach outs, right? You receive responses from customers. And I don't want to say that, you're always going to get positive responses. Even negative responses are fine, because
Yeah.
one of the challenges today is also that, is your email getting opened? Is your phone call being received? So I think that's also one of the challenges, right? And again, that's something that's psychological. It's not that somebody is not skillful, which is why he does not have result. It could be a reason which would involve all of these factors which are not in anybody's control. So I think that's the reason why I sort of suggest my team to go for manual reach outs first, and
Right.
followed by automating them at a later date.
So I mean, I think understanding, when to give that quality and quantity is the
So
game.
it's always, when it comes to prospecting, it's always a quantity versus a quality game. The more qualitative you are, the number of reach outs would be less, but again, the kind of leads would be great.
Yes. Yes.
And with quantitative reach outs, yeah, it's not bad to have quantitative reach outs, because that's need of the hour as well, right? You want to get as many leads as possible and then sort of want to convert them into SQLs.
Right.
The way I would put it is, quantitative reach outs would give you would get you a lot of MQLs,
Mm-hmm.
but qualitative reach outs would get you a lot of SQLs.
Right.
So I think that's the way I would sum it up. One other aspect that you sort of touched upon was also, where do I see personalization heading,
Yeah.
right? Now this is something that I had been sort of wondering about a lot in
Yeah.
the last few months, and again over the last couple of years, since I've seen this completely shift from a manual based thing to now it being an automated sort of a thing, right? And something that I was also talking to your peers at Sprouts all about as well is, personalization. It's not that AI is taking away jobs. It's
Yeah.
also about how you're adopting with AI, right?
Right.
And again, this is a sign where, again, I would just want to put personalization in that bucket as well, where
Mm-hmm.
personalization is also having some kind of a similar journey here,
Right.
because if you are not using chat gpt today, if
Right.
you're not using tools that are at your disposal today, I think you're going to lag behind. So I think that's where personalization is heading. It's not that you're not personalizing good or bad or whatever it is. It is also that, because see, chat gpt has this tendency to give you crisp responses, so people are leveraging that, and people are seeing output out of
Right.
it as well,
Right.
right?
Right.
And the need of the hour is, not just be relevant, but to be crisp as well when you're sort of making indoors into any account or any industry or whatever, right? So it's important. I think the way personalization, personalization, I think it's heading the right way. I would say it has a lot of support coming in from chat gpt and other tools, and
Right.
obviously organization like yourselves that are
Yeah.
sort of taking this a notch higher or a notch further, I would say.
Yeah.
And I think it's headed in the right direction.
Also, I think on Sprouts also we are using at least 13 to 15 pointers based on accountless contacts, right? These are the date leveraged data that we use to personalize the messaging and get those relevant information in places. My next question would be like, I mean, what are some strategies for personalizing at scale without losing that human touch? Because I understand a lot of information when falls into place, we might get here and there. So, what level of personalization is too much, and when to take a step back?
Now I would want to ask, when you
Yeah.
say what level of personalization is needed at scale.
Yeah.
So when you talk about scale, are you talking about scaling within a particular account, or are you talking about, let's say, for example,
Multiple.
I'm multiple accounts, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So in that sense, I would suggest, let's say, for example, let's say in case of Signzy now, right?
Right.
Now we are a company who are growing into the North American region. We are a very very well established company in the Indian market. But again, with the Series B funding that we received last year, we've started growing into international markets.
Right.
And North America, specifically US and Canada, happen to be two of the markets
Right.
that we are primarily focusing on as of today. Now one of the things that we often come across is, now everything is new to us, right? There's it's an avenue that nobody's been before. let's say, for example, Signzy operating in the US. It's not that, we were doing that initially as well so that we have certain references data to sort of rely upon. But when I want to sort of, want my team to crack those kind of challenges, right? One thing is I would want to, again, one thing that would remain constant is the strengths of my organization.
Right.
What is the kind of value that I can bring to an organization, when, across multiple facets.
Yeah.
And now when it comes to sort of operating at scale across multiple accounts, I would want to focus on the niche within that industry and not a particular account. Right? Because that niche would be relevant to all the accounts within that industry.
Right.
And it is still specific.
Yeah.
And obviously it does not lose out on a lot of personalization. And it would not, that according to me would not be too much personalization. And when you sort of then get into the ABM part of it, at that point of time, you can start getting into too much personalization. So let's say, for example, I would, when we are talking about an industry, I would want to talk about, what is the current scenario in the industry today? Where is it that the industry is heading? And what are the current challenges or the kind of scenarios that come, obviously, because there are disrupting factors within every particular industry, right? And if you are able to cover or, tap into some of those in those 5-6 lines of email that you're sending out, or these 5-6 lines of conversation that you're having with the customer over cold call, I think the person on the other end would definitely be interested in hearing out, because it's not about, because I mentioned, right, I'm going to focus on the psychological aspect, right? It's not about what somebody knows. It's also about what is it that one could want to know, right? Now, I know, right, like, for example, where my company is heading, how much my company is growing, and things like that. And now somebody is going to pitch me saying that, I'll help you scale 10x. I'll be like, I know what my basics are, I know what my financials are, and I know how much I'm going to scale. So it does not make sense to me when you say that, you'll help me scale 10x. But if it is a different way, let's say, for example, I'm not quoting that, I'll help you scale 10x, but I'm instead quoting that I'll help you scale. And these are the factors that we see that, organizations like yourselves are sort of coming across. And this is how we've helped somebody else, scale from this point to that point, which makes it more realistic, right? And then it again makes me think that, okay, I can talk to this person because maybe I know everything about, how my organization operates, the industry it operates in, but it gives me the impression that, okay, there's no loss in, hearing out, how other organizations are encountering challenges, right? And all of those things. So it's always good to have that, that kind of a practice in that sense, and it always helps you, grow as a person as well, grow because it always, makes you introspect into things that you were not thinking about initially. So so I think that's the way I would sort of put it out there.
Perfect. That's beautifully put, Kaushal. Thank you so much, Kaushal, for joining in. It was really insightful to hear all about the ABM and things that you'd been doing around campaigns, right, and the future of personalization where it heads, right. Would really looking forward to see what your team does in the coming years, and really looking forward to speaking with you again. Thank you so much, listeners. Thank you so much for being patient.
Thanks, Shubham. Have a good day.
Have a good day, Kaushal. Thank you. Bye-bye.